Today we're going to have a look at this strange cube that also happens to be a speaker. Welcome to the basement. So a funny story actually about obtaining this speaker. I always drop into op shops or thrift stores to see what they've got for sale, and on one particular occasion I spotted this lovely looking speaker. So of course I went over there and picked it up, had a look at it and thought, yep, this is something I want to own. But I couldn't find its friend. Well, there was only one of them in the store. But I couldn't leave it there. It was just too good a deal, and I thought I'll grab it, and who knows, maybe I can find another one day. Well, about 5 months later, I went into the same store and I found its buddy. So that means I've got a set. Now that I've got a set, I want to actually see what they sound like, see if they need repair, and explore these things. When I said in the intro this was a strange cube, well, I wasn't too far off because they were known as the Cube speaker, or a Sonab OD-11. Now the Sonab OD-11 was released in 1974 and made through to about 1978. And in that time they made about 20 or 30,000 of them, and they proved to be a very popular speaker both with consumers and reviewers. The speaker itself was designed by a guy called Stig Carlsson, and he designed speakers for about 50 years. This was the smallest speaker he ever made, but he made a range of different speakers, and they all kind of were a bit unusual. He was a bit different with his speaker design, and I've got a real soft spot for speakers that are just a bit out of the ordinary, these ones included. Now, what's quite unusual and what you may be wondering is why the speakers inside these grills are facing different directions. And that's part of the unusual design which appealed to me when I first saw these speakers. They actually have feet on the, well, so the side or the back or the bottom. And so they sit on their feet, and they can be just freestanding speakers which actually fire up. And that's why the speaker inside is on an angle, which you can see on here, it's kind of on that angle. And so you have them side by side and they fire up into the room, which is pretty unusual. It also means that on the back we have this base port here, and that base port needs to be spaced off either the floor or a wall, and so these feet act as those spaces when it's sitting this way, like a floor standing speaker. Or you could get brackets which actually attach to here, and you could attach this back to a wall, and those feet would space it off the wall, allowing that base port to be working efficiently. So pretty clever design. Now, one drawback, of course, with the way they are designed is with the grills facing up, they just get covered in dust inside, which both of these have actually had that happen to them. So we can get that grill off. We can see she's a pretty dusty old unit in here. We've got spider webs going on, and more worryingly, the foam ring around this speaker and the other one have completely disintegrated, which is a fairly common problem with these particular speakers. They use peerless drivers, so if we can get that fixed, I reckon they're going to sound awesome. The other interesting design feature is they have this jumper here, and this jumper actually will come out and you can put it in a different position, and I think that changes the frequency response of the tweeter. So again, just quite unusual and interesting designs. They've got a little red dot down here, and that aids in the positioning of them when you're putting them on a wall or on a bookshelf. So I think the plan of attack for these speakers is I'm going to give them a thorough clean, get rid of all the dust. We're going to remove the drivers and attempt to fix them. And I'm also going to give the timber veneer just a bit of a once over, maybe a light sand and a bit of an oil, just to get rid of some of the scratches. Right, let's get to it. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to just clean all the dust out of here, and then we'll try and remove that driver. Now we're going to remove this mid driver. To get to one of the screws, it's actually underneath this tweeter here. So we're going to have to remove the tweeter as well. So I'll do that first. So it's posi drive. Who uses posi drive? Okay, I've been able to move that tweeter just out the way. It's still wide in through this ABS housing, but I can get down to that screw now. So I'll take these brackets off. Now I'd imagine one benefit from having these angled drivers in the case is that it would actually reduce standing waves inside the box. Now what happens when a speaker is firing forward, it's also firing backward, and those sound waves travel back from the cone of the speaker, they hit the back of the speaker box and they bounce back towards the cone again, and they can end up cancelling themselves out as they run into each other. So if the speaker's kind of firing at an angle, those waves are going to be bouncing around inside the box, less likely to be cancelling each other out. So quite a nifty little idea. Right, that's all the screws undone. Let's just see if we can lever it up and see if we can free it from its... There it goes. So I've got the speaker loose. I can just get to the connector here. That's one, and the other one. There's the speaker out of its box. So it's got that kind of that, what do they call that, like a horseshoe magnet on the back here. That's one of the brackets. But you can see it's pretty well gone. I do have replacement rubber or foam rings for these, so I'll get that cleaned up and glued back together. Now let's have a look inside here, because that's quite interesting as well. So that mid base is actually, you can see that there, it's sitting in a cone, so that cone diameter gets tighter as it goes in, and it's got some padding around here, obviously to let that sound wave go into the rest of the chamber and come out of that base port, which, where is that? The base port's over here somewhere. So yeah, awesome. I love interesting design speakers, and this certainly fits the bill for that. A fair amount of that foam that's disintegrated has fallen down into the suspension part of the speaker, but I reckon we can get that cleaned out after we take this off here, so I'm going to try that next. Now if I just grab it, it looks like, yep, it's just going to come away nicely, most of it. Okay, that's all of the foam that I can easily remove. Now we have to remove the bit of foam that is actually glued to the paper cone, and there's some glued here to this metal ring on the outside as well. So I'm going to use a metal knife to take this off, and I'm not sure yet what I'm going to use here, but I'll start on the easy bit and then have a think about how to get it off this cone without damaging the cone. Okay, that's nice and clean around the outside. Now to tackle this cone here. Okay, I think if I'm careful enough it should work. I've got the first little bit off and well, I'll just continue doing this. Good thing I don't have much else to do today. Okay, now most of that has cleaned up pretty nicely. Probably just needs a little bit of finishing off, but I did actually just have a thought. I don't want to go to all this trouble if the voice coil on this speaker is burnt out. So one way you can always test is get a 1.5 volt battery, and in this case I don't have it connected to any wires, but I'm just going to hold it onto this connector here and this wire here, and if I touch the other connector, the cone should jump, because at the core of it a speaker is just converting voltage to movement. So 1.5 volts across the coil should make the speaker move. And we can see there, it's quite happily wanting to move. If we go the other way, it should go down. And there it goes, down. So we know that voice coil is okay, it's not burnt out or shorting, and we can go ahead with replacing that diaphragm or the suspension ring on this particular speaker. I've purchased a couple of these foam rings in anticipation of doing this job, so they are going to fit in here. But before we see how well it fits, just let me talk about PCB Way. So PCB Way is your one-stop shop to get everything you need for your next project. They can do the case, they can do the PCB, they can provide the components, they can assemble it, they can do the prototyping, they can do it all, or you can do as much as you want as well. If you want to know which way to go, it is PCB Way. So thanks PCB Way for all that you do sponsoring this channel. So this foam ring obviously glues to the cone, glues to the chassis. We might glue it to the cone first, and then I can make sure that that cone is not being pulled out of alignment, and then we can glue it down to this metal ring around the outside. Right, let's work out how to do this. I've managed to find this container, and it appears to be just the right size to push the ring down inside. So the challenge is pushing this inside ring down so it glues to the cone without sort of disturbing everything else, and that seems to be the right diameter to do that. So what we're going to do is put some PVA glue on both surfaces. I'll put this on, weigh it down, and hopefully that works. Here we go. Okay, moment of truth. Let's try it out. Down she goes. Just want to make sure that we get this centered on here, and it looks like it's in the middle. Let's weigh it down. Okay, everything looks fine. I'm going to leave it there for a while and come back, and hopefully that's glued down and we don't have to have a second go at it. So just while I'm waiting for that glue to dry, I'm just sanding off the corrosion from these clamps. These were clamping the speaker drivers down to the enclosure, and I'm going to give them a new coat of black paint, I think, make them look pretty. Okay, again, we're still waiting for that glue to dry, so what I'm going to do is just touch up the timber veneer on these cabinets. Now they're not too bad, there's no chunks missing, but a few of the sides are a little bit dinged up. As you can see on this side here, we've just got a couple of scratches here. You can see this one here, something's been dragged on it, or it's dinged it a bit. I can actually feel a bit of a dent there. Now everyone's got their own secret sauce when it comes to restoring speaker cabinets. I've got my own little method, and that is I use a bit of wet and dry paper. So this is 400 grit, and a bit of Windex or something like that. Spray plenty on there, and then we just give it a light sand with the grain, of course. And what that does is it knocks off any of the surface grime, or if it's been in a smoker's household or something like that, and it's got nicotine or I don't know, fly dirt, all sorts of stuff that ends up on the surface of your speakers. This just sort of knocks it off, and it gives it a nice shiny smooth surface again without sanding right through the coating or getting too serious. You certainly don't want to go right through the veneer. So going gentle is good here. Just go nice and easy, a few passes over, and I can feel where that dent was, so I'm just going to give it a little bit extra there, and of course where those scratches were. Now what we're going to do is dry all that off. Okay, it's looking better already, but it is a bit flatter now, so it's lost a bit of its sheen. I've still got that little divot there, but it's barely noticeable now. The scratches are totally gone. So what I do now to restore that sheen and to protect the timber grain, I like to keep things simple. I don't like to make things too complicated. I know a lot of guys have these like fancy concoctions and everything. I just use a little bit of linseed oil, and I find that does the trick perfectly. So I just put a bit on a rag and just rub it on with the grain. And linseed oil, especially boiled linseed oil, is a special kind of an oil that actually dries. Not many oils will dry, but linseed oil will. And so it does take a while, so it's still, you know, it can stay tacky and a little bit sticky for a while, but you just leave it, and eventually it'll dry and form a nice polymer surface on there. There we go, and that's like new. That spot's totally gone, the scratches are totally gone. It is looking fantastic. So that's just my easy go-to to restore speaker cabinets. So the glue has dried around the inside. It's looking pretty good. I went past the lines a little bit with the glue, but that's okay. You know, it's my first time ever doing this, so you can expect a little bit of cosmetic variation. It won't affect the sound of it. So what we're going to do now is glue the outside, stick that down. To do that, I have made this very fancy tool. I had a bit of steel strapping lying around from a building, so I've just cut some of that down and made a ring, and that ring is just the right size. Of course, if you have a bit of poly pipe or something like that, you could just use that, but I didn't have anything the right size. So I've made this, it is the right size. I'm going to be able to weight that down, and it's going to hold that foam ring hard against the edge. And it also allows me, once I've glued it down, to double check everything's lined up by just depressing the speaker slightly and seeing if it binds or not. Anyway, that's the theory. Haven't done this before. Let's find out if it works. Okay, I've got my highly scientific and calibrated weights. So that one can go there, that one can go there. Now if I push the cone in the middle, it feels free, but the best way to tell is going to be to play some music through this. So well, sounds alright. It's going to sound a lot better when it's in the enclosure, but it's making noise. It's not making any grating noises or any kind of staticky noises, so I'm really happy with that. I'm going to let that glue dry, and I reckon we are good to go. Well, the glue has dried and everything is stuck down nicely, and it's doing everything that a speaker should do. So that's great. We're ready to put it back together, except of course I had 2 of these to do and we've only done 1. But thankfully this is a video and not real life. So that means they're both done. Yay! We can put the speakers back together and see what they sound like. So I brought the speakers upstairs and I've installed them in one of my favourite listening places. So we've got the Pioneer stereo there. That's going to be powering the speaker test, putting out plenty of watts, so plenty of power there. We've also got here my current favourite speaker, the Bang & Olufsen Beovox S45-II, which are an excellent sounding speaker. I really enjoy listening to these. Excellent bass, amazing mid-range, beautiful treble. So yeah, that's just a really enjoyable speaker, and I thought I'll put the little Sonabs next to it. Now, I don't have high hopes. They're about half the size in volume, and they're just so different. So I just figured it would be a good test to put them right next to my favorite speaker, and that will really highlight if they're any good. So the way we're going to do this is, because of content matching, I'm going to use an audio track from the YouTube audio library, and we're just going to play it through both speakers. I'm going to A/B between them and just listen out for those differences that I can hear. Now you might struggle to hear the difference because you're going to be hearing the music played through the speaker but then recorded in my mic and then uploaded to YouTube and compressed again. So it's not going to be that ideal for you, but you'll get an idea. You might be able to hear a bit of difference as I A/B between the 2 speakers. Now, in addition to using the track from the YouTube audio library, I'm also going to spend some time, obviously not recorded, but I'm going to listen to a lot of my favorite music through both systems, and then I'll be able to give you really an accurate impression of what I think about these little Sonabs. So let's play the music and see what they sound like. I've had a listen to many types of music now, and I'm actually quite blown away by the Sonab. It's remarkable how good it sounds. Now, in comparison to the Beovox, the bass is almost identical, and that actually was quite surprising because the amount of bass that these little cubes put out was exactly the same as the Beovox, and the Beovox has about 1.5 times the cubic capacity in the case, so that actually was quite surprising. And I'd say it's down to that pretty clever porting arrangement that these units have and the way they space themselves to allow that port to work effectively. So bass is amazing, but these things have an incredible mid-range, and that's really what I love about them, is that they're so detailed and so clear. But the Sonabs, they really match it, but in a different way. So these can be quite analytical. So when I'm listening, I can see in my mind's eye where they are with my eyes closed, but these tend to throw the sound a bit wider and just make that soundstage really wide and really kind of enveloping, and it's really nice, it's really pleasant. These can get a little fatiguing over time, but I didn't get the same sense with the Sonabs. In fact, it felt like the bass was creating this big soft cushion, and the highs and the mid-range just kind of balanced nicely on top of it. It was quite a thing to listen to. So yeah, really incredible. I love the way it just throws the sound wide. I was sitting in the chair and had my eyes closed, and every time I opened them, I got a surprise by how close these were together. They just felt wider. Whereas when I was listening to the Bang & Olufsen and closing my eyes, I can pinpoint where the speakers were, and you sort of lose that sense of being enveloped in the sound. So yeah, I'm really impressed with the Sonabs. Now, the difficulty I have is really what to do with these things. I want to keep them, I want to listen to them, but the one downside I see to these particular speakers is that upward facing grill. Now, I know you can wall mount them and have them sideways, but I don't want to stick them to my walls. I like to have my speakers sitting on the ground. So my dilemma is, you know, we have a lot of plants and cats and things that, you know, I'm just worried about debris and stuff falling into these speakers, and we saw when I picked them up, they were just sort of covered in dust and spider webs and stuff. So that's my concern with them. Now, maybe I can live with that, or take the grills off from time to time and clean them, because they do sound really good. So that's just it's a good problem to have, isn't it? Trying to work out which of your amazing speakers to listen to. So I'm going to leave it there. You've been in the basement. Have a great day.